Welcome to this exploration of history, a journey through the eras and stories that have shaped our world. Our goal is always to provide knowledge, stimulate curiosity, and offer food for thought. In the meantime, subscribe to the Story of Asuta channel if you are passionate about these videos and leave a like. Now let's start. She was tied to the torture table. Her eyes wide with terror, she watched the executioner as he clutched a metal funnel in his hands. It was July 17th, 1676, in Paris, and Marie-Madeleine de Brinvilliers, a noble marquise, was about to discover the cruelest meaning of the so-called water torture. In a matter of minutes, liters and liters of liquid would be poured down her throat, until her stomach would dilate beyond all human limits, until she would beg for death. But why? Why was a woman of the French high nobility, cultured, elegant, mother of a family, subjected to one of the most atrocious tortures of the century? The answer will chill your blood, because this is not the story of any criminal. It is the story of a woman who transformed poison into art, who killed for passion, who spread panic among aristocratic families and made even the crown tremble. To understand how they got to that torture table, we have to go back 30 years to a palace in Paris. There, a young aristocrat learned that for some, killing can be easier than loving. Marie-Madeleine was born in 1630 into one of the most influential families in France, the daughter of a powerful magistrate. She grew up surrounded by luxury and privilege. Yet there was something deeply disturbing about her, something her parents chose to ignore. She had no empathy. She laughed when others cried. She approached wounded animals to study them with curiosity. And when, at 12, they found a dead cat in the garden, poisoned, she was there, staring at it in silence. But who would have suspected such a beautiful, well-mannered child, perfectly conforming to the standards of nobility? Marie-Madeleine learned early to use charm and beauty as masks. Underneath, an obsession grew to find creative ways to bring death. At 20, she married Antoine Gobelin de Brinvilliers, a marquis of good lineage but few resources. What should have been a strategic marriage turned into a springboard to the abyss. It was thanks to her husband that she met Gaudin de Sainte-Croix, a military officer who became much more than a lover. He was her mentor. While imprisoned in the Bastille, Sainte-Croix had learned from an Italian chemist the art of perfect poisoning, killing without leaving a trace. Once free, he put his knowledge to good use. Together, he and Marie-Madeleine transformed the Marquise's palace into a secret laboratory. They tested poisons on animals, then on servants, then on humans. Marie proved a natural in the deadly art of chemistry. The first target was her father. She visited him often, caring, affectionate. She brought him sweets, wines, herbal teas. Each gift hid small doses of arsenic. Her death was slow, painful, and seemingly natural. But Marie knew the truth, and one death was not enough. Next came her brother Antoine, who died after a dinner at her house. Then came François, who died a few months later. One by one, the members of the Dobray family were eliminated. With each death, Marie inherited. But money wasn't his only motivation. He took pleasure in killing. He experimented with dosages, varied toxins to prolong the suffering. He noted every effect as if keeping a scientific diary of pain. The servants began to die, some from strange illnesses, some from inexplicable symptoms. No one dared to accuse a marquise. Her position protected her. In 17th century France, the word of a noblewoman counted more than the lives of 100 servants. Everything changed in 1672 when Sainte Croix died accidentally during an experiment. A mask broke. He inhaled toxic fumes and fell dead. But he left a box. Inside, poison formulas, compromising letters, details of the murders. Evidence that was enough to destroy half the French aristocracy. When the box was discovered, Paris went into a panic. All the names, all the dates, all the methods. At the center of the web, there she was, Marie-Madeleine de Brinvilliers. She fled to the Netherlands, changed her identity for years, but was finally caught. In 1676, French justice locked her up in the dungeons of the Châtelet. Water torture was reserved for the worst criminals. Tied to a tilted table, a funnel was inserted into her throat. The water began to flow, first 8 liters, the ordinary version. But for her, they chose the extraordinary 16 liters. Her abdomen swelled like a wineskin about to burst. At the first break, they asked her to confess. She revealed only fragments. The judges were not satisfied. They continued. At 12 liters, she was almost unconscious. Blood was dripping from her mouth. The funnel had torn her throat. Vomiting, spasms, despair. That was when she collapsed. She spoke. She revealed the names, the poisons, the plans. She said she had tested the toxins on hospitals, on servants, that she had even planned to poison public fountains. By the time the torture stopped, she had confessed enough for 1,000 executions. But she was a human wreck, bloated, devastated, unrecognizable. She spent 3 days vomiting water and blood in her cell before her body was fit to face the stake. On July 17, 1676, Marie-Madeleine was taken to the Place de Grève, burned alive in front of an enraged crowd. He had admitted to the murder of at least 30 people, but it was suspected that there were many more. His death ended an age of terror, but it ushered in a new horror. How many other aristocratic deaths had actually been perfect murders? How many other nobles used poison as a tool for revenge, inheritance, silence? Marie-Madeleine had proven that real monsters don't scream. They whisper, they smile, they pour perfectly poisoned, scented tea. His story survives centuries. It reminds us that evil can wear silk gloves, that civilization is often just a thin mask over humanity's darkest instincts. The story of the Marquise de Brinvilliers is not just a macabre account of a series of aristocratic murders. It is a disturbing portrait of what can happen when intelligence merges with a total lack of empathy, when social privilege becomes a shield for cruelty, and when an obsession with control turns into a science of death. Her story, although belonging to a distant time, continues to speak to us today because it lays bare an uncomfortable and timeless truth. Evil does not have a defined face and can hide anywhere, even behind the velvets of a tea room or in the folds of a silk dress. Marie-Madeleine de Brinvilliers was not simply a criminal. She was a social phenomenon, a symptom of an age in which appearances counted more than conscience and in which justice was blind, but only to the nobility. For years, she was free to kill. in general indifference, protected by her title and her grace, while Paris fell under a poisonous cloud that no one dared to name. Her case shook the foundations of French society, revealing how rotten the inside of that golden world was. The panic that followed the discovery of the letters and secret formulas of Sainte Croix was not only fear for the murders committed, but terror for those still undiscovered. How many other aristocrats played with poison? How many inconvenient heirs had been silently eliminated? How many servants had died in silence, victims of experiments that no one would ever denounce? The Marchioness was not alone in her horror. She was simply the first to be unmasked. His execution was spectacular, brutal, definitive. Yet, not even the flames were enough to erase the echo of his actions. The trial, the torture, the public confession marked a turning point in the collective perception of nobility. No longer infallible, no longer untouchable, but capable of the same monstrosities as the humblest, if not worse. After her, the word poison was no longer just a substance, but became a symbol of moral decadence, of social corruption, of an elite that had stopped governing to begin to devour itself from within. More than 3 centuries later, the name of Marie-Madeleine de Brinvilliers continues to evoke terror, not because she was an evil woman, but because she was a perfectly normal woman, educated, refined, courteous, who voluntarily chose to embrace evil with method, with elegance, with frightening precision. His figure reminds us that there are no obvious and recognizable monsters at first sight. There are ordinary people, even fascinating ones, capable of committing the unspeakable with a smile on their lips. That's all for today. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. See you next time. Bye.